listener.
Good morning, Ammar.
Hey, Jalf. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Nice sunny morning.
It's a very nice one. Let me turn up the volume here because I've changed. I was told the sound on my laptop was rubbish,
Hmm.
and I don't believe that to be the case.
I think it comes through loud and clear.
Yeah, it has always done for me, and I've always heard you equally in the same way too. But the experts said otherwise. So I have um, complicated things by using my phone and my laptop and my desktop and my 50 screens and everything else. So anyway, I'm here. You're looking very suave and sophisticated. What's going on?
No, God, just because I haven't had a shave, I think.
Yeah, look, suits you. You look cool. Look like a movie star. Um, uh, anyway, let's kick off. I'm just finding the brilliant presentation that Jamie does for us every single week. We've got Craig, Conway, and the team dialing in at 10:30 from Malaysia. They've become part of ISS Airview. They're over there talking to investors, and they're going to be doing some productions, and they're scaling 10x, and so exciting, so exciting. So they're joining us, is what they are. But let's get the show on the road. Yes, lovely messages from the super duper Sandeep Kapoor. I really like Sandeep. Like as in, can I go as far as say is there's lots of love in the air, Jaff? Is there for our friend Sandeep?
I was chuckling though when he was doing the I think it must have been an AI app or something, when you can make your voice sound 20 years older than what you actually are. So you must have done that. It must have done something like that, Sandeep.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting is we had our inclusion by default conference, and the world's a really peculiar place where people are now offended at not being offended. And I was sat there listening to this voice with an accent, an Asian accent, knowing that the person who was putting on that Asian accent doesn't have an accent, and and for Asians who have got an accent, I imagine that would be so offensive. And for Asians who don't have an accent, that would be so offensive. And for white people and non-Asians who don't have an accent, that would be so offensive. It's just so brilliant. Well done. I think that's good. I think if you can offend someone, offend everyone.
Well, hey, people need to man up and not get offended
Man up.
by.
Oh my God, you can't say that.
Well, bloody
That's
man up, man.
outrageous.
Even
You
all the
can't
women,
say
we need to.
man
All
up.
the women, we needed to man up. There you go. Is that offensive?
Gosh.
Well, so Ammar was quite funny. On Sky Sports, I was listening to a commentator, right, and she was the one that was doing the interviews with the players and stuff, and it wasn't even a Champions League match. I understand in the Champions League matches, they've got this lady who's brilliant because she can speak different languages. So if you've got a player who's from South America, she can speak Portuguese, and then she does that.
Brilliant.
Then she explains it in
Brilliant.
English. I think that's fantastic
All
because
right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
brilliant. But then they've got another lady who's interviewing just on a normal Premier League games,
Yeah.
and she must be German, and she's got like a German accent. And I'm thinking, well, why do we need someone with a German accent? I'm sure there's plenty of like lovely English out there with a perfect Queen's English that you should be having kind of doing that interview on Sky instead of someone from Germany. What's the need for that? I don't understand it. She's
Yeah,
done with her
I
like
mean, I'll tell you
strong
what. because I was thinking about this actually, and not about the football thing, but I think it's a great point. And for me, unless there is a genuine reason for us not to use best of British or English speakers and individuals. If there's genuine rationale, then we should. Funnily enough, I was thinking exactly the same. I went to a VE Day event last week. And was it last week? I couldn't tell you what day it is, never mind what year it is. I couldn't tell you who I am. Never mind who you are. But and on VE Day, and when they were because they had lots of videos from 80 years ago, right? And speakers and people on the stereo or gramophone, actually gramophone, the radio is what it was, and how people spoke at that time was very much in a clipped English special way. And I say to each and every one of you that we are British. Anyway, I almost feel as if I want to hear that voice when I'm
Yeah.
listening to the radio, right? Anyway, probably not. But
Yeah, there is that, the Queen's English that we grew
but
up.
it's the King's now.
It's
Let's
now
be
it's the
clear.
King's
It's
English.
the
I was
King's
just about to say,
English.
but the Queen's English, the newsreaders, the perfect English that should be the highest level and the best articulation and A, B, C, and D. I think that's what. Going back to the point of the lady with an accent on Sky News, but I guess I don't know. There'll be so many people there'll be so many debates about
That's a good
everything,
debate.
and then they'll be talking about immigration and the new laws on immigration and stuff. I mean, some of it is pretty mental in that. If you imagine they had these laws like in the 60s and stuff, then hardly anyone would have been here. Any of us probably wouldn't be here because they would have expected our forefathers to have passed English tests and stuff like that. So if you imagine, Ammar, they did do it, and the likes of you and myself, and our fathers, grandfathers, weren't able to get into the country because we weren't in English. But there was still so much value add done by that group of people, and the second generation and third generation are continuously adding so much value and have become British.
Yeah.
So I think there's so many. I understand it. 100% understand the some of the logic behind it, but on the same token, I follow someone in Dubai, quite a famous person, and he was like saying, "Well, okay, then all of the English that are residing in Dubai, can you make sure you do an Arabic test for you to be able to stay in the country? If you reverse it, then it wouldn't work in kind of other countries, would it? Because it's just not something that other countries are asking for."
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting the expectations of just the way people are. Jeff, I think it's changed so dramatically as what it is. Anyway, let's kick off the show properly, please, and recognizing that we've got international guests on the show. We are incredibly proud of our cosmopolitan, our harmonious country. And I was reflecting on this, Jeff, because without migrants and without immigration, this country wouldn't exist, right?
No, it wouldn't.
The Roman Empire, that the most northern outpost for the Roman Empire was Hadrian's Wall and Pons Iulius, and the bridge across the River Tyne and whatever else, and there was people from Persia, Iran, and various others who had come here to build this country at that time. After the Second World War, there was a big ask of all of the Commonwealth, please come. Actually, even during the war, there was more people who fought for the UK and Great Britain that were neither British or from the UK, right? That fought in the Second World War, and after the World War II, the country invited, begged people to come and help rebuild it and support the economy. And everyone just gave up whatever they had to come here to A, support this country, our country, but B, to equally make a better life. And that's what everybody has done. Yes, there's lots of people have changed. I just find it outrageous, so hypocritical that we are allowing people to be killed, to be decimated, to encourage war and genocide and everything everywhere else, and wherever in the different countries all over the world, by whoever, everything everywhere, and then are sat here questioning why people would want to come here.
Well, that's the whole point, Ammar. I mean, if you get to the source and eradicate all of the source of all of the problems, then people are not going to want to migrate as much. But also,
But it's crazy when the UN, the United Nations, so this isn't me, I'm just reading out the news here, just to be crystal clear. But when the United Nations is, anyway, let's park that. Let's come back to the best of British. It is the best country in the world. And good morning, listeners and viewers. You're listening to Ammar and
Jalf,
live on our weekly radio show right here on SpiceFM.
Each week we bring some views, news, and one or two clues from the business world.
Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities.
And we will be talking shop quite literally, not just corner shops, whether you're looking to start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business. We can help.
We can't help. We can't help. All right. What's been going on? So, National Wealth Fund leads 1.35 billion deal for Northeast Renewable Energy Project. Anyway, HMRC criticised for misusing terminology in Don't Get Caught Out campaign on tax scams. UK consumer confidence plunges to lowest levels since 2022 amid global and domestic pressures. I'm sure we mentioned some of this last week, didn't we?
Well, they said it was opposite last week, Ammar. Some statistics said that something was up, and we were saying that we questioned that.
Yeah, it's just, anyway, it's crazy is what it is. Yeah, it's and then the news that I'm actually reading isn't the news that's in the headlines. Jamie, if you're listening in, yeah, the headlines of the actual text is unemployment rate hits 4-year high as wage growth falls. Well, that's not surprising, is it?
Wage growth falls.
Yeah, so unemployment rate, people unemployed, is the highest
That's
it's been.
higher.
Yeah.
And then wage rate, but the wage rate's just gone up though.
Yeah, high hits near 4-year high.
Okay.
As wage growth falls.
So
the UK's unemployment rate has risen to 4.5%, reaching its highest level since mid-2021, according to the Office for National Statistics. The increase signals a cooling labour market, with job vacancies continuing to decline and falling below pre-pandemic levels for the second consecutive quarter. Additionally, wage growth has slowed to 5.6%, the lowest since late 2024, but still managed to outpace inflation with real wages up to 2.6%. The number of people on payrolls also dropped by 33,000 in April, further indicating economic uncertainty and challenges for employers facing high staff costs.
So basically, in summary, the businesses have just basically done a massive cut down in employees,
yes,
effectively.
and they're not recruiting.
Since the minimum wage has gone up, they've just looked at it. How to counteract it? The only way to counteract it is just to shed the hours and the costs.
Yes, yeah.
I think that is the reality.
That is it. That is it. I mean, interestingly, right, because the Chancellor and the Prime Minister, so statistics prior to the end of the financial year showed that the economy had grown by 0.7%, right? They weren't predicting that. Now, the argument from an economic or perspective is that the people were just spending more before everything was happening. So that naturally people were buying more, people were spending more and hoarding more before all of the economic turmoil. So I would argue that the next quarter's statistic is going to show a sharp decline in the economy overall.
I think so, Ammar. I feel those sentiments from what I can see when I'm speaking to other colleagues, certainly in the leisure and hospitality industry. That seems to be the spiral that it's going through. Yeah, these
headlines on this actual presentation are wrong, because here's a really interesting news story, and very briefly, because we have got our guests coming on at 10:30, but tax changes trigger wave of early business exits among UK entrepreneurs, survey finds. A new survey by wealth manager Brown Shipley finds that UK entrepreneurs are increasingly planning early exits from their businesses due to tax changes and economic uncertainty. Key findings from the 4,000-person survey include 38% of entrepreneurs are now considering selling their businesses earlier than planned, triggered by the October 2024 budget and rising national insurance contributions. 36% plan to sell outright to manage personal wealth, up from 21% in January. 40% are seeking external investment to mitigate risk, and 37% to support growth. Succession planning is on the rise, with 1 in 3 aiming to reduce equity stakes while keeping the business in the family, particularly common among younger founders compared to just 10% of over 55s. And then there's a range of other statistics. Actually, let's finish this news story because it's interesting. 53% of young entrepreneurs prefer employee buyouts or leadership transfers versus only 9% of older owners. Confidence in long-term planning has grown, with 54% of entrepreneurs now confident, rising to 68% among young entrepreneurs. Brown Shipley says the findings reflect growing concerns around financial risk, inheritance tax, and succession, driving a more pragmatic and legacy-focused mindset among UK business owners.
They all make sense to me as well, Ammar, and I can understand the reasons why. It's sad though, isn't it?
So sad.
If
So sad. It's just
you're the Chancellor,
naive.
Right? Are you not going to be? Your job shouldn't it be to stop any of that? The statistics going that way. Your job should be to turn things around the other way.
Yeah. Oh, of course it should.
I mean, I think it's absolutely outrageous. A country like this, of 1,000 years of imperialism, the country's all set up and set. We've done what we've done. all we need to do now is the infrastructure is in place. We just got to make sure that we continuously keep it thriving instead of taking all monies that we can by taxation. That's not or how do we, if this is our business, this country is our business. How do we develop it? Oh yeah, let's just take the money off all the people, as opposed to finding other ways of developing the economy and developing the appeal of the country. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, we've shown the ability to bring. I'm sure the foreign investment must be on the lowest of the lowest at this moment in time, because why would anybody invest in the UK at the moment, especially when Trump's doing what he's doing? He's just going around the world and making America to be the most appealing nation in history. The way that he's going around and drumming up business,
it's brilliant. It's
it's freaking.
brilliant.
I mean,
You've got to
our,
take your hat off to him.
yeah, what's our prime minister doing? Just taking money of every single
Anyway,
person in the country.
I'm sure there's lots of different people doing lots of different things. It's just we're not necessarily seeing that on the ground. Anyway, there is strategy, and actually, we're doing a lot. Jeff, I was in Teesside yesterday, and setting up our offices there. It is so exciting, so exciting. Picking up what we're doing here in the Northeast, connecting it into the Teesside, Freeport, and positioning that globally. We're going to hear from Andrea and Craig Conway in a minute, who are dialing in from Malaysia because they're part of our group. We've got Probe Industries, we've got Nikon, we've got all of these brilliant international businesses based right here. And because actually the thing with business, Jeff, is you need to take control yourself. So why be reliant on, if you can have a Donald Trump, great. If you haven't, then I vote for Jaff because he's having a laugh.
Ammar, is it Craig Conway, the actor, the super duper actor?
Yeah. So he's a lovely person, is what he is. So we've got Craig dialing in with Andrea from Malaysia with a couple of others in a minute. Let's see if they are here, and we'll get them on the show. Let's check. I don't know is the honest answer. We had our inclusion by default conference, Jaff, is what we had earlier on this week. And there was 100 odd people there. And it was really interesting debates.
Oh, well, I think big up some of your colleagues that came in. Saw them yesterday. Zach and his friends that came from Manchester and stuff. I think you spent a lot of time with them yesterday.
Oh, did they talk? Did they mention?
I'd
Obviously mentioned it's his favorite food place, and he's like, "Oh, is that your friends?" I says, "Yeah, that's his Jaff's." I constantly chase after Jaff, and I wipe his nose and everything else all of the time. I never hear from him. Is what we do. Anyway, are they here? Are they? Let's admit. Let's admit, Craig and Andrea. But yes, I'm hoping that they're there. I'm hoping that you tuned in. Hey!
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Welcome to Spice FM and our show Business, right here. Delighted to have you here on the show. Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. It's a delight to be with you, as always.
And Jaff got incredibly excited when he says, "Is that Craig Conway, the superstar actor, dialing in?" And naturally, we said that to be the case. So thank you. Do you want to start by introducing yourself? Say who you are, what you do, and why you do it, please.
Just before
Absolutely.
Craig starts, I think Andrea might need to get a little bit closer because on my screen, I can only see half of Andrea. I don't know if that's the case for the other viewers and the listeners.
I don't think Andrea's there.
Andrea's
That was
not
my-
here.
Okay.
No,
Andrea's,
that was
Okay,
Anita hiding in the corner.
All right. Okay.
Where she scurried away.
and I think so. Let's kick off. Let's because it's Sandeep and Craig, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yes. So forgive us. We've been plugging an equally great person as well, but it's delighted to have you here, Sandeep. So let's start. Craig, you kick off. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
Okay, I'm Craig Conway. I've been an actor for 30 years, and I have set up Turnover 25, which is a new production company from the northeast of England with my incredible partner, Mita Krishna. And we are looking to put independent film from the northeast into a global enterprise where we can take northeast stories, visions, productions, and connect them to the world. That's why we do it, and that's why we love it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sandeep, introduce yourself, please.
A pleasure. So thank you for having me. My name is Sandeep Joseph. I grew up in India, and for the last 20 years, I've been in Malaysia. I have a history of doing advertising. I currently run my own ad agency, which is 8 years in. We've got 85 people and a fair bunch of clients, over 250 awards. But my passion has always been film. Of course, in advertising, we make ad films. We've done documentaries as well. Recently, we made a Shark Tank-like documentary film for a bank client. And when Amita got in touch, and I've known her because she was living in Malaysia as well for a while, we were very excited to hear about Craig and see what we could do together.
Brilliant. And tell me, what is the vision, the ambition? Obviously, Craig's one of our greatest exports from the region here out of the UK. But what does success look like?
So for me, sitting here in Malaysia, we're looking at working with Turnover 25 and exploring independent filmmaking, co-productions between the northeast of England and Malaysia, and even exploring other parts of Southeast Asia, whether it's Indonesia, which is a big market for film, or even India, where I originally come from, and which is a film crazy country. But I think the tagline that Turnover 25 is developing is on the lines of from the Northeast to the world. So I think that's the vision, that sums it up. That's what we want to do together.
And what does that? So I'm sat here. Yeah, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about people in the region, Craig. I'm sat here in the northeast of England. You're sat in Malaysia. You're a superstar. You've got brilliant people like Sandeep and Amita and various others supporting you. I'm sat here. What does this mean to me?
Well, I think for the northeast, it's always been pretty obvious that there's so much talent in that region, and when we look at even the landscape, if we look at it in that way, the landscape itself lends itself to filmmaking on such a level that you don't get in many places. Just the backdrop, the physical backdrops. You've got the castles, you've got the landscapes, you've got the coastlines, you've got the infrastructure of cityscapes, and all the three major cities that we work in around Durham and Newcastle and Sunderland, and then you go to Teesside and Middlesbrough, and all of the northeast represents such capacity for telling stories from all over the world. So what it means is when we start doing independent films, we can then create a pipeline of work that educates, that entertains, but also invites internationals to come to the northeast, work with us, and excel at what we do, which is telling stories on a global level. And we've always been good at that. And the independent scene for many years has kind of suffered because we've always relied on the major studio systems to tell us how to do that. And actually what we did was develop a model of let's rehearse for longer and shoot for less time, because that way we can then help support new entry-level talent into how we work on a kind of schedule basis, but we can align them with high-profile actors, high-profile talent in front and behind the camera, and then just start creating this constant pipeline of work and working with the universities, we're working with education, so that we're learning, training, and then becoming self-sufficient by creating films that are saleable, scalable, and eventually global, which is the aim of everything we're doing.
Brilliant. Sounds incredibly exciting. And I know because of who's involved, it's a lot more than exciting. But explain, what do you mean by independent films and production, please?
Yeah. So independent, really, for us, it used to be the idea that you make one film, and essentially an independent is you're not studio governed. So you're not being told that you can or can't do this because we want to manipulate your project. It's giving people the freedom to have that creative expression without the boundaries, and that's always exciting for any artist and any creative. So the independent scene, it attracts newcomers, but it also attracts people who want to come and tell stories in a very different way. So different cultures can explore their voice. They can express themselves in a way where we're not hampered and governed by certain boards and certain studio heads who are going to come down us and go, no, we want you to do it this way. This is the way we like it. So it's disrupting, which is what independents used to do. We used to disrupt the way studios did it, and be slightly, I wouldn't say anarchic, but anarchic to the system that's always been in place. But that allows for freedom of expression and growth. And of course, when you put that together with good business and transparent investment and a good way of working, everybody wins.
So authenticity, a more honest, a more genuine type of experience, both for those involved in the production of it, but also from a viewer's experience as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, there's certain stories that people say aren't commercial, but we know fine well now, especially looking at the modern age of technology, everybody's got a screen somewhere, whether it's in their hand or on their desk or in their room. So all the streaming services cottoned onto this a long time ago. We know content, people want content that they connect to because they share the experience or they share the story and they understand it. So all of our films have a very human condition look to them. They all have a content that relates to what we are as human beings, how we connect to each other. It's about culture. It's about understanding each other in the world and bringing people together. So all of these stories are embedded in that, and how we support one another as human beings. So those kind of stories, a lot of the time, have always been put on the back burner, and you would only get to see them if you went to a festival. Whereas now, actually, we can get our films distributed to many areas of the world, including the UK, the Northeast, and everywhere else, but have voices from people who have always, in the past, like I say, been able to just do one picture every now and then, and it might take 4 or 5 years to get that film even made. Whereas now, there's the want, the desire, the demand, and the investment to ensure we can do 3, 4, 5 films a year in Newcastle, and more, because there'll be other areas like documentaries and hopefully looking into TV, things like that. But the idea is to grow that over the next 3 to 5 years.
Brilliant. And there's a shared services community type of approach as well, isn't there, to what you're doing, so that as independent filmmakers, with the sets, with the skills, with the experience, expertise, and even with the actors, you could almost, because it's the Northeast and Teesside, you could almost say, rather than let's just shoot one film, you could almost have a series of investments, couldn't you? You could almost say, right, what we're going to do is we're going to do concurrent activity, concurrent filming. So we are going to split a brilliant Craig who's in such high demand in two. So he's going to be in Teesside filming something there, and he's then going to be he's going to be in Middlesbrough, then he's going to be in Newcastle, and then he's going to be in Sunderland, and whatever it is. And yes, it might be slightly more harder to coordinate, but it should make it more effective, more efficient, and more impactful as well, shouldn't it?
Absolutely. And I think you've completely aligned everything up there, because the vision is to have this first slate of films and have an annual slate. But exactly that, we also want the overlap, and we want the overspill into encouraging others to use our model and to work with us from the finance side and the creative side to bring multiple projects so that our region becomes self-sustainable for that as well. And I think the hope is that we'll very soon be looking to find a space where we can facilitate that and ensure that we're all working together. And again, it's about collaboration, as you said. Every city, every town, we should be collaborating together to make that happen, because that's exciting, and that's when good things happen.
Brilliant. Jalf?
I'm just so intrigued to hear the vision of what you are all putting together. I think the benefit to the region is going to be absolutely immense. So at some point, we'd love to get you in when you do come back to the city, and we can sit and maybe have lunch and talk about it further. But I think it's just fantastic work, and I think these are the things. Whilst we sometimes we do speak in jest, and we kind of have a moan and a groan about the economy and what's going on broadly. But I think individuals like yourselves, they really need to be appreciated by those in power, because this is the level and the creativity that you're bringing to the region, both locally and internationally, is going to add so much value that you just need to be so recognized, and any support that's necessary from governmental level and council level should be given to you with kind of as a priority, so that you can get things going so that the local economies can benefit so much.
Yeah, honestly, Jeff, I think again, it's really wonderful to hear that, because in the past, when I started in the industry, I had to move to London and leave Northeast, and that was how it used to be. You always had to leave your area to go to the capital city to pursue a career. And actually, we know now that is not a necessity. And actually, the Northeast, we have created so much talent in the past, but the majority of them have left the area. And we shouldn't be trying to do that. We should be maintaining and holding on to that talent and enriching our community by inviting others to us. And that's what's happening here. I mean, we have a press launch on Monday here. There's another festival which Sandeep's created, and it's a short film festival. And that's how we ended up connecting. And just by having a conversation about a shared enterprise when it comes to horror and short films and the love of film and independent film, I'm now in Malaysia talking about how they want to come to the UK and to the Northeast and work with us. I mean, do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Sure. So Southeast Asia loves horror. It can be a really bad horror film, but it's still got a chance here. Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia. There are horror channels with 24 hours of horror movies running. And there's a lot of local folklore, ghosts, and horror characters or folklore characters which you wouldn't find in the West. So there's actually like original new characters who can appear. But also, in a way, I find there's a similarity between, let's say, the north of England, Newcastle, and so on, and Malaysia, in that there are a lot of passionate people who want to do good stuff, but they are not able to, for reasons of finance or for reasons of the studio system, which encourages only certain kinds of films to be made. Even today, Hollywood struggles because they make $150-200 million film and everything's riding on that, but it becomes relatively boring to viewers who've seen that kind of thing before many times. So to us, telling new stories, horror is one genre that we want to explore because we think it can be made between the two parts of the world. There could be collaborations, cooperations. We're looking at shooting stuff in the north of England. It's also something that we've seen less of on screen. We always see London and urban England, but Craig's been showing us some of the shooting locations in and around Newcastle itself, and that's beautiful, right? And even going up towards Scotland and so on. There's a lot of areas that could look great on screen. There are a lot of stories from Malaysia. A lot of Malaysians have studied in England, worked in England, and of course, Malaysia was a British colony. So there's always some emotional association or attachment. So that also brings an advantage. Personally, I've never been to Newcastle. I stayed in London for 2 years as a kid, and that was great. But I'm a big fan of Sting, and Sting has sung about Newcastle and shipyards and the dying of that industry and his father and so on. And so it's very evocative to me, and it's very cinematic. And there's a lot of opportunity about telling stories of these parts of the world which have not been told and which are new. And yet, as Craig has been saying in various interviews in this country for the last few days, there's certain things about the human condition that are shared. We all have hopes, dreams, aspirations. Most people have family lives, complicated families, undercurrents, opportunities of growth, love. All these themes are universal and can be set in different contexts with different cultural variations and still be very, very watchable and interesting to watch. And I am personally, today I run an independent media agency, so we're not part of any big global group. And there's a lot of so we are fighting in a way against the big giants, but we've carved out a space, and there's always space for somebody who brings something new to the table. And that's what I think Turnover 25 is. And that's why we're excited to do something new.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
I'm loving the passion and that explanation. I'm glad the paragraph there was a pause and a next sentence after horror movies and the passion for horror, and then the Northeast, explaining that there was people are passionate in the Northeast and such like. And you're right. You know, there's I think in Asia, gin booth type of things are quite prominent there, and both culturally and religiously, they're featured as well. And it's great to hear, the fact that there is a space for you and independent movie making. And just to pick up on Jeff's point, Craig, Sandeep, Newcastle, the Northeast, and there's a few cities in the Northeast, right? And there's a few beautiful places. For me, this is the greatest region in the world, so it's fantastic to have Craig over there flying the flag, not just for the UK, but for the Northeast. You can get from city to country to coast within 15-20 minutes, right? There is nowhere else. It has the highest number of castles, within England and the UK. It has some of the most historic features, as well as modern industrial influences as well. Pit villages, sort of industrial sites in Teesside that are still prevalent in those communities. So you can do something really, really, really special to capture the emotions of viewers through here. And for me, I'm absolutely delighted because not only are Craig, Turnover TV, and now by extension yourself, Sandeep, members of our special community. And here was a slide that the radio show had created, so it's remiss of me not to show it. But you're part of you're a founding anchor member of the International Space Station at Air View. And what does that mean as part of a special community? Well, you have to have not just the ambition and aspiration, but the practical demonstration to grow global and scale by 10x, right? So yes, that's financial, but it's the impact, it's the value that you bring to the community. And just this week, we've opened up the office in Teesside as well. So being one of the founder member community, you're automatically part of that Teesside space in place. And I know that Teesside will welcome you with open arms to create a production site there, and we'll be enabling that as well. But what does that mean internationally? Well, Craig is sat there with you, Sandeep. Malaysia, you're right, has huge history and connection, not just with the UK, but Newcastle University's first international campus was actually set up in Malaysia. And they are reactivating it, right? So a Russell Group red brick university, recognized as one of the best in the world, went to Malaysia and set up there. So there's those relationships. And what we're doing through our business model through ISS Airview is, rather than international students, and we are still welcoming them and we are incredibly dependent upon them, rather than them coming here, doing an excellent educational experience and then going back, what we're integrating them. So, Craig, Turnover TV will not only be, through ISS business model, utilizing graduate internships and placements to do translation, to do culture, but to get that real hands-on work experience that's going to help them with their professions, but also through Turnover. And why we were delighted, to accept them into this special community is because the value that Turnover TV, 25 TV is going to bring to that community through the productions, but also through the supply chain. So the technical expertise behind the scenes is huge. And the one greatest skill that you can teach anyone in the world is how to present themselves and to speak publicly. And having Turnover 25 TV, not only create the magic that they're going to create through the movies, but offer that support to graduates, to interns, and to community groups across the Northeast is brilliant, and is part of the fabric of our social value of that, Craig, Andrea, Mita, and the team are desperate to do, is to make a difference. And they're using their skills, experience, and investment to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing. One thing that we haven't discussed, obviously,
it's Jalf's actor. He wants to be an actor. He wants to be in the movie. Yes,
well, he's looking good on screen. Yeah.
He's beautiful. He's beautiful. Yeah, without a doubt. He's the Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm the Danny DeVito, right?
So Sandeep, I was going to ask you, good self, when you mentioned that you spent a lot of time in London.
Yeah.
At the time you were in London, was Newcastle ever on your radar? And people in Malaysia, do they know Newcastle?
Yeah, okay. No, it's a fair question. So I was in London as a kid. So I was 8-9 years old. I remember going to the cinema when Return of the Jedi came out. When India won the World Cup, we were there in '83. But so I had no idea of Newcastle. But even today in Malaysia, I don't think most people could point out Newcastle on a map of England, right?
Okay.
They could. A lot of people have been to London. Not so many have been to Newcastle. Many people from Malaysia have studied in the UK, but not necessarily in Newcastle. And I think the north of England gets not enough coverage especially in film. We actually have a client here who's from the north of England, which is Vimto from Manchester, and they describe how somebody lives in a village that looks like Broadchurch in Dorset or whatever. So again, the references are usually south of England, not enough north of England. And there's a lot of potential. It's an untapped market. It's unexplored.
I think my point is going to be, I think you will find within the next 3 to 5 years, the profile of Newcastle is going to be international because of the football. I think that's going to really push the city on the worldwide map. And I think with the investment that's happening, hopefully we get into Champions League, and that does have a huge international audience. And so Newcastle is going to be prominent. I think it's a good time to do the infrastructure work now, as you're doing, get everything set up and put in place. Because I think as that profile raises, there are going to be a lot more people that are going to have their eye on the city. But you already have the infrastructure in place to do great things internationally. So that was going to be my final point to maybe sum up the city. And
thank you, Jalf. And I would argue that yes, the football is, because we didn't get the chance. We always talk about football on the radio show, so Jalf gets withdrawal symptoms if we don't raise it. And thank you for doing that. But I would argue, Jalf, a football, whilst a significant part is in the grand scheme of things, is a very small part, because it's the things like Craig, it's the things like the international trade, it's the things like those other drivers and barriers that are making the UK, the Northeast and Newcastle far more attractive than it has ever been, right? And we have the best people, we have the best places, and the best ambassadors. So thank you ever so much for joining us. We've got 30 seconds before the radio show ends. Anything to say, Ad?
I would just say, I would like to invite both of you to come to Malaysia sometime. We have amazing food, apart from all the lovely people of different races. So be our guests.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you. Look forward to it, and vice versa. So Jalf is the foremost restaurateur in the whole of the UK. He creates the best food, so it's a quid pro quo. So come here first, and then we'll come back with you. Thank you ever so much for tuning in and dialing in. I need a big grimace at the camera, please. 3, 2, 1. Brilliant. Thank you for that. There we have Craig and Sandeep dialing in from 9 hours ahead, or however many hours ahead, on our weekly radio show. We'll be back next week with some more guests and insights and news. Until then, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And thank you, Sandeep and Craig. All the best.